Stuart, welcome to the show. How can we help you?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello?
Can you hear
me? I can hear you.
Yeah,
Yes.
we got you.
We can hear you. We're good.
Oh, good. I was looking, there's supposed to be a button to press, but I couldn't find it. I love that story about the editing pod videos. That's just fantastic. the reason I'm calling, it's on the back of the conversation you had about teaching critical thinking in schools. I'm a psychiatric nurse here in UK. I was lucky enough to do a post-grad course where we talked about using CBT with people with diagnoses like schizophrenia. And one of the techniques that we were taught, which I find incredibly useful, is if you've got someone with a fixed delusion, before you focus too much on the delusion, you teach the scientific process. And that is really helpful in getting people then to understand alternative possibilities and actually set up hypotheses and test them. And very often you can reason people through what otherwise would be that definition of a fixed false belief not amenable to reason. I'm not trying to suggest that all people who are theists are mentally ill by any means. That's patently absurd. But I just wondered what your reaction to that would be, because I believe that the American model of mental health is very different from ours.
Yeah, there are quite a couple of things health-wise, at least in the US, that differ, unfortunately, from other countries. The one thing that I would say is that, that sounds very interesting. I love that approach. That makes a lot of sense to me. In terms of how that would work with theists, that's kind of what we're trying to do here on the show, right? Have a place where they can come and throw their theories out there and get some feedback from somebody who is going to reference things like logic, things like the scientific method. So absolutely, I think that can help. I also think that, kind of going back to what we were talking about with, I believe it was Nick, about, getting more critical thinking in schools and more classes around the ideas of argumentation and logic and informal fallacies. All of these would very much help kind of stave off people even getting to the point where they would need a show like Talk Heathen, right? Making sure that this is available across the board, even, middle school, high school, I think would do a lot of good.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a moment. When I started my nurse training, I was only 27 at the time, and I was a young earth creationist. Within the first year, actually within the first 6 months of being introduced to the way that we think in nursing, without ever going near religion, I learned a completely different way of viewing the world. Yeah. My belief disappeared. I mean, I had the couple of years of being frightened of going to hell and all of that many people do. And I did go through the angry phase, but I mean, I'm 55 now and I've never looked back. It's just... So I love the idea of teaching in schools. But I just thought, I haven't really got a lot to add, except I suppose I wanted to, provide some evidence that this stuff works when you teach people how to approach things scientifically. Mm-hmm. So that's really all I wanted to say. It was just to provide some encouragement, I suppose, that, we do this even with people with delusions. We do people diagnosed with schizophrenia and all sorts. So I just wanted to say, this would be wonderful. If you can make this happen in schools, do. And maybe
Absolutely.
We can get it over here as well.
I fully agree. And that's an awesome connection to make, Stuart. Thanks for calling in and sharing that with us.
Yeah, I'd love to see like a class on metacognition, which is thinking about thinking. So it's like thinking about the processes that you have going on inside your head while you're thinking about things. It just when you take a step back and try to look at it from that perspective, it becomes easier to see where you might be going wrong and where you might be like, okay, did I run into this making my videos all the time when there's a new scientific discovery or something that on its face might seem to go against something that I've said in the past. Like my initial reaction is just scroll past that and click on the next one, which is the link that I've used a million times before that agrees with what I was already about to say. Mm-hmm. But I have to catch myself in that and go back and be like, okay, well, if this is new science, I want to make sure that I'm on top of it. And this actually did just happen recently with the decay rates of different radioactive isotopes. There's a constant debate in science going on as to whether or not these things are actually like universal constants. And the latest paper I'd always been referencing was a 2018 one, but then one just came out in 2020 that's like, maybe they're not quite as constant as we thought before. So I had to shift my angle for that. So it's an important skill to have.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's also, it's not so hard to teach. I mean, I because I train people in mental health as well, and mental health care, I quite often teach the basics of that. You just starting with basic Socratic dialogue, and then the very, very basic, uncomplicated scientific method of hypothesis testing. And it's not that hard to get people actually to a point where they can do it. You know, which is wonderful, really.
It really is. It's a tribute to the fact that it works well, that, you know, just a little bit of understanding in this way can start to deconstruct a lot of, you know, whether that's a delusion that is brought on by a mental health issue or an indoctrination issue. Just applying a little bit of that Socratic reasoning, a little bit of that street epistemology approach, if you will, really does help a lot. Stuart, we're going to wrap up, but thank you so much for jumping on the line with us today.
Thanks for calling.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.